Part 1. The Emperor's Trap. The earth beneath our feet is not merely soil and rock. It is a vault, a massive spherical archive of everything that has ever lived, breathed, and died. For thousands of years, we have walked on top of the dead. We build our cities on their bones. We grow our crops in the dust of their bodies. Usually the dead stay quiet. They accept their place in the silence of the strata, layers of history pressed down by the weight of time. But humanity is curious. We are obsessed with the past. We are driven by a greed for knowledge, for gold, for the secrets that were buried with the kings of old. We call it archaeology. We call it history. But in its rawest, most primal form, it is grave robbery. We break the seals. We tear open the doors that were meant to stay shut for eternity. We drag things into the light that were designed to dwell forever in the dark. Most of the time, the dead do not mind. We put their jewelry in museums. We study their bones, and we write books about their lives. But there are some places on this earth where the ground itself seems to warn us. There are tombs that were not just built to honor the dead, but to trap the living. There are discoveries that came with a price tag so high it was paid in blood. Today, we are going to open 3 of those doors. We will travel to the dry, cracked earth of China, where an emperor built a map of the cosmos using rivers of poison and an army of clay, guarding a secret that killed thousands. We will climb the freezing peaks of the Alps, where a discovery was made in the ice, a body that had been waiting for 5,000 years and which seemingly began to hunt down every single person who touched it. And we will stand before the jade coffin of a warlord in Uzbekistan, where a warning was carved in stone, a warning that a team of scientists ignored, only to unleash a catastrophe that nearly consumed the world. These are not ghost stories. These are the historical facts of what happens when we refuse to let the past sleep. Welcome to the archives of the dark. To understand the horror of the first story, we must first understand the setting. It is March 1974. We are in the Shanxi province of China. It is a hard land, dry, unforgiving. The sun beats down on the Los Plateau, turning the soil into a fine, yellow dust that coats everything. The villagers of Xi'an are desperate. There has been no rain for months. The crops are dying. The water table is sinking. Survival is the only thing on their minds. A peasant named Yang Jifa, along with his brothers, decides to dig a well. They are not looking for history. They are not looking for treasure. They are looking for water. They choose a spot in a persimmon grove, a place where the trees are gnarled and old. They take their pickaxes and their shovels, and they begin to strike the earth. 1 meter, 2 meters. The dirt is hard, red, and stubborn. Then, the shovel hits something that does not sound like a rock. It is a hollow thud, a sound of metal striking fired clay. Yang Jifa brushes away the red dirt, expecting to find an old jar or perhaps a tile. Instead, a face looks back at him. It is a face of gray clay, stoic and calm, staring up from the darkness with eyes that have not seen the sun for 2,200 years. The villagers are terrified. They call it a temple of the earth demon. They are afraid that by disturbing this face, they have cursed their water supply. They do not yet know that they are standing on top of the greatest tomb complex in the history of mankind. They do not know that beneath their feet stands an army of 8,000 soldiers, each one life-sized, each one unique, waiting for a war that will never come. But the statues are not the scary part. The statues are just the guardians. The true horror lies in what they are guarding, and the price that was paid to build this city of the dead. The man buried here is Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He was a man of colossal ambition and colossal cruelty. He unified China, but he did so with a blade soaked in blood. He burned books to erase the past. He buried scholars alive to silence their criticism. But for all his power, for all his armies, he had one weakness. He was terrified of death. It was a phobia that consumed him. He sent ships into the eastern seas to find mythical islands of immortality, ships that never returned. He ate mercury pills, convinced by his alchemists that the liquid metal would make him eternal, when in reality, it was slowly poisoning his mind and destroying his organs. As he felt his body failing, his obsession turned from living forever to ruling forever in the afterlife. He didn't just want a coffin, he wanted a world. Historical records tell us that 700,000 workers were conscripted to build his mausoleum. 700,000. That is the population of a modern city, all slaving away for decades to build a necropolis for one man. They dug a pit so deep it cut through 3 layers of groundwater. They poured molten copper to seal the floor. And inside the central burial chamber, they created a miracle. The historian Sima Qian wrote that the ceiling was studded with pearls to represent the constellations of the night sky. On the floor, they created a replica of the empire, with the great Yangtze and Yellow rivers flowing to a man-made ocean. But these were not rivers of water. They were rivers of mercury. For years, archaeologists thought this was just a legend, a poetic exaggeration. But recently, soil samples taken from the burial mound revealed mercury levels 100 times higher than normal. The legend is true. Beneath that hill, there is likely still a toxic, flowing lake of liquid metal, creating poisonous vapors that would kill anyone who enters without protection. However, the mercury is not the darkest secret of the tomb. The darkest secret is about the silence. Imagine the day of the funeral. The emperor is dead. His body is placed in the sarcophagus, surrounded by rivers of silver and skies of pearl. The rituals are performed. The candles are burning. The mourners are weeping. But there is a problem. The tomb is full of treasure. It is full of secrets. It contains the location of the traps, the mechanical crossbows rigged to shoot anyone who enters. It contains the map of the Mercury rivers. And there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of people who know these secrets. The artisans, the craftsmen, the engineers who designed the locking mechanisms, the concubines who served the emperor but bore him no children. The new emperor, the son of the tyrant, makes a cold calculation. If these people live, the secrets get out. If the secrets get out, the grave robbers come. So the order is given. Historical texts describe the scene with chilling brevity. The gates were closed. Try to place yourself in that moment. You are a master craftsman. You have spent 10 years of your life carving the delicate details of the terracotta warriors. You are standing inside the tomb, perhaps making final adjustments to a chariot, or placing a jade cup on a table. You are waiting to be dismissed. You are waiting to go home to your family, to see the sun, to breathe fresh air. Suddenly, you hear a sound. A deep, grinding rumble. It is the sound of massive stone doors, weighing tons, beginning to slide shut. Confusion turns to panic. People start to run. They drop their tools. They scream. They rush towards the exit, but the heavy stone slabs slam into place with a final thunderous boom. Total darkness. The torches are still burning, but they will not last long. And even if they did, the air is limited. There are hundreds of people trapped in the sealed chamber. You can hear them. You can hear the screams of the concubines, the cursing of the soldiers, the desperate pounding of hammers against stone walls that are too thick to break. Then, the realization sets in. This was not an accident. This was the plan. You were never meant to leave. You are not a builder anymore. You are a grave good. You are part of the inventory. As the hours pass, the torches flicker and die. The oxygen begins to thin. The panic turns to lethargy. The screaming fades into weeping and then into gasping. The carbon dioxide builds up. One by one, the people around you fall into a sleep from which they will never wake. The last thing you hear is the sound of your own breath, echoing in the absolute dark, surrounded by rivers of mercury and a ceiling of pearl stars that give no light. This is the reality of the terracotta army. We look at the statues and we marvel at the artistry. We admire the detail of the armor, the braids in the hair. But we forget that this wonder of the world is actually a crime scene. It is a massive, opulent murder weapon. When archaeologists began to excavate the area around the tomb, they found mass graves. They didn't just find the clay soldiers. They found skeletons, piles of them. Some were buried with iron collars around their necks. Some had their legs shackled. These were the workers who died from exhaustion. But inside the tomb, the skeletons of the artisans and the concubines still wait, preserved in the toxic atmosphere. And what of Yang Jifa, the man who found the first warrior? Did the discovery bring him glory? No. The curse of the emperor seemed to touch him too. The government seized his land to build the museum. His home was demolished. He was paid a pittance, roughly the price of 3 commercial pillows, for finding the 8th wonder of the world. He spent his old age signing books for tourists in the gift shop for pennies, while the museum made millions. He died poor, bitter, and largely forgotten. The terracotta army stands as a testament to power, yes, but it is also a monument to the terrifying things human beings will do to one another in the name of legacy. The emperor wanted to rule forever, and in a way, he succeeded. He commanded an army of clay to guard him, and he commanded an army of ghosts to keep him company. He turned his tomb into a fortress of death, sealing the living inside to ensure that he would never be alone in the dark. But if you think the wrath of an emperor is frightening, it pales in comparison to the wrath of a force much older and much colder. Part 2. The Face of War. Chapter 2. The Breath of the Dragon. We leave the silent clay ranks of the emperor and travel west. We cross the Himalayas, cross the steppes, and arrive in the ancient heart of the Silk Road. Uzbekistan, Samarkand. It is June 1941. The world is already burning. In Europe, the Nazis are marching. But here, under the turquoise domes of Samarkand, everything feels distant. The air smells of spices, dust, and centuries of peace. But that peace is about to be broken. A group of men arrives in the city. They are not tourists. They are Soviet scientists, led by the brilliant anthropologist Mikhail Gerasimov. Gerasimov is a man of science, a man of the new era. He does not believe in ghosts. He believes in bone and muscle. He has invented a revolutionary method to reconstruct a human face from a skull, and he wants to prove it on the most famous skull in Asia. He has come for the grave of Timur. The West knows him as Tamerlane, the Iron Limper. If Qin Shi Huang was a tyrant, Tamerlane was a force of nature. In the 14th century, he carved a bloody path across the world from Delhi to Damascus. Historians estimate that his armies killed 17 million people, 5% of the world's population at the time. He did not just defeat his enemies, he erased them. He built pyramids out of severed heads. He buried thousands of captives alive to create foundations for his towers. He was the scourge of God. And now, he rests in the Gur-e-Amir mausoleum under a slab of dark green jade, the largest piece of jade in the world. Gerasimov has orders from Joseph Stalin himself. The expedition must open the tomb, exhume the body, and reconstruct the face of the conqueror. But Samarkand is a city of rumors. As soon as the trucks arrive, the locals begin to whisper. They watch the scientists with fear in their eyes. They know what is written on the tombstone. They know the legend that has been passed down from father to son for 500 years. When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble. There is another inscription, carved inside the tomb, a warning darker than the first. Whosoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I. The story of what happened next comes to us from Malik Kayumov, the cameraman of the expedition. He was the man responsible for filming the opening. He was young, eager, and loyal to the Soviet cause. But he was also a local. He spoke the language. He knew the heartbeat of the city. On a hot afternoon, Kayumov decides to take a break. He goes to a nearby chaikhana, a tea house. Inside, he sees 3 old men sitting on a rug. They are dressed in traditional robes, their faces lined like old maps. They wave him over. "My son," one of them says, "you are with the men who want to open the grave?" Kayumov nods. "Yes, we are scientists." The old man shakes his head slowly. He reaches into his robe and pulls out an ancient book. The pages are yellow and brittle, covered in flowing Arabic script. He traces a line with a trembling finger. "Read this," the old man says. "It says that if the tomb of Timur is opened, the spirit of war will escape. A catastrophe will begin immediately. Rivers of blood will flow." Kayumov laughs. He is a Soviet man. He tells them, these are just fairy tales. But the old men do not smile. They look at him with a pity that sends a shiver down his spine. "Tell your boss," they say. "Do not touch the stone." Kayumov, unsettled, returns to the mausoleum. He tells Gerasimov about the warning. Gerasimov smiles. He pats the young cameraman on the shoulder. "Malik," he says, "we are here to work, not to listen to grandfathers telling scary stories." The work begins. It is June 20th, 1941. The mausoleum is cool and dark. The air is heavy. The team sets up floodlights. They bring in heavy winches to lift the massive jade slab. The atmosphere is tense. Even the skeptics feel it. As the winch tightens and the stone begins to move, strange things start to happen. The lights flicker. The winch jams for no reason. Members of the team complain of sudden headaches, of a feeling of suffocating pressure in the chest. Finally, the slab is lifted. Beneath the jade lies a wooden coffin, black with age. The smell hits them first. It is not the smell of decay. It is a pungent, spicy scent. Frankincense, camphor, and dried rose petals. The smell of a king preserved for eternity. Gerasimov steps forward. He pries open the lid. There he lies, the skeleton of the giant. One leg is shorter than the other, proof that this is indeed the lame conqueror. The skull is thick, with heavy brows. Gerasimov is ecstatic. He holds the skull of Tamerlane in his hands. He has made history. The team celebrates. They pack the bones into crates. They drink wine. They toast to science, to Stalin, to the future. They have looked death in the face and won. But the old men in the tea house were not looking at the past. They were looking at the future. The tomb was opened on June 20th. Less than 48 hours later, in the early dawn of June 22nd, 1941, the radios in the expedition camp crackle to life. The announcer's voice is shaking. "Attention! Attention! Nazi Germany has invaded the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa has begun. It was the largest invasion in the history of warfare. Hitler threw millions of soldiers, thousands of tanks, and thousands of planes against the border. The invader more terrible than I had arrived." The correlation is impossible to ignore. For centuries, Tamerlane slept, and the monster of World War was held at bay on the Eastern Front. The moment his sleep was disturbed, the gates of hell opened. Kayumov is sent to the front line. He becomes a cameraman of war. He sees the burning cities. He sees the rivers of blood the old men predicted. And he is haunted. He realizes that they might have been the ones to pull the trigger. The war drags on. The Soviet Union is bleeding. Millions are dying. The Germans are pushing toward Stalingrad. The fate of the world hangs by a thread. Kayumov, driven by guilt, manages to get a message to the high command. Legend says he spoke to Marshal Zhukov himself. He told him about the curse. He told him, "We must return him. We must put the genie back in the bottle." Stalin, a man who started his life in a seminary and ended it as a tyrant, was superstitious. Perhaps he believed it. Perhaps he just wanted to boost morale. But the order was given. In November 1942, a special plane flies the remains of Tamerlane and his family back to Samarkand. They are not just dumped back in. They are reburied with full Islamic rites. The jade slab is lowered. The tomb is sealed. The scent of camphor and rose petals is locked away once more. And here is the final chilling fact of this story. The reburial was completed on November 20th, 1942. On November 19th, just hours before the tomb was sealed, the Soviet army launched Operation Uranus. It was the counterattack at Stalingrad. It was the turning point of the entire Second World War. From the moment the stone touched the ground, the Germans never won another major strategic victory in the East. Was it coincidence? Skeptics will say yes. They will say that Hitler's plans were made months in advance, long before Gerasimov touched the jade. They will say that the counterattack was planned by generals, not by ghosts. And they are probably right. But imagine being Malik Kayumov. Imagine standing in that tea house, laughing at 3 old men, and then watching your country burn for 4 years. Imagine living with the question, did we do this? Some graves are archives of history. Others are prisons. And when you break the lock, you don't get to choose what walks out. From the heat of the desert and the fire of war, we move to our final destination. A place where the silence is absolute. A place where the cold preserves everything, even the desire for revenge. We are going to the Alps, and we are about to meet the oldest murder victim in history. Here is part 3. Of the script, this concludes the deep dive with the story of Otzi and the outro. This section focuses on personal horror, the feeling of being hunted down one by one. Part 3. The Man from the Ice. Chapter 3. The Frozen Witness. We leave the heat of the desert and the fire of war. We ascend to the roof of Europe, the Ötztal Alps on the border between Austria and Italy. It is September 19th, 1991. The sky is a piercing blue. The air is thin and crisp. It is a beautiful day for hiking. Helmut and Erika Simon, a German couple on vacation, decided to take a shortcut across the Tisenjok Pass, 3,200 meters above sea level. They are walking through a landscape of ice and rock, a place where life struggles to exist. As they walk, Helmut spots something brown sticking out of the melting ice in a gully. At first he thinks it is rubbish. A doll? A piece of leather left behind by a careless climber? They move closer, and then they stop. It is a human body. He is lying face down in the slush. His skin is leathery, yellow-brown, and stretched tight over his bones. The back of his head is bald. His arms are spread out, as if he is reaching for something. The Simons are shaken. They assume this is an unfortunate mountaineer who died perhaps 10 or 20 years ago. A tragic accident. They take a photo, the last photo taken of the man before the chaos begins, and they trek down the mountain to report the body to the police. They do not know it yet, but they have just stared into the face of the most significant archaeological discovery of the 20th century. And in doing so, they have started a clock. The recovery of the body was a mess. It was not a scientific excavation. It was a salvage operation. The police arrived with jackhammers and ice picks. They hacked at the ice, accidentally tearing the skin on the corpse's hip. They snapped his arm to force him into a body bag. They even tried to pry his frozen tools out of the ice with a stick. They treated him like a piece of debris. It wasn't until the body was brought to the morgue in Innsbruck that the true horror revealed itself. An archaeologist named Konrad Spindler looked at the axe found with the body. It wasn't made of steel, it wasn't made of iron, it was made of copper. Spindler realized the impossible truth. "This man," he said, "is at least 4,000 years old." He was wrong. The man, now named Ötzi, was 5,300 years old. He walked these mountains before the pyramids of Giza were built. He was alive when mammoths were still dying out on Wrangel Island. But Ötzi was not just a frozen mummy. As scientists began to thaw him out, the story turned from history to a cold case murder investigation. X-rays revealed a flint arrowhead lodged deep in his left shoulder. It had severed a major artery. He had bled to death in minutes. Cuts on his hands showed defensive wounds. He had fought for his life days before he died. DNA analysis on his coat showed the blood of 4 different people. Ötzi was a warrior. He was hunted. He was murdered. And for 5 millennia, the ice had hidden the crime. Now, the ice was gone. The victim was exposed to the flashbulbs of cameras and the prodding of scientists. And almost immediately, the people who disturbed his rest began to die. The media calls it the curse of the Iceman. Scientists call it coincidence. But the timeline of death is so precise, so personal, that it defies statistical probability. The first victim, Rainer Henn. Rainer Henn was the forensic pathologist who physically handled Ötzi with his bare hands. He was the one who peeled the frozen clothing off the body. He looked into the dead man's face closer than anyone. 1 year after the discovery, Henn was on his way to a conference to present his findings on the Iceman. He was going to show the world the secrets he had uncovered. He never made it. His car crashed head-on in a terrifying collision. He died instantly. The secrets stayed with him. The second victim, Kurt Fritz. Kurt Fritz was the mountain guide who led the helicopter team to the body. He was an expert climber who knew the Alps better than anyone. He was the one who uncovered Ötzi's face from the ice. Shortly after Henn's death, Fritz was leading a climbing expedition in a familiar area. A sudden avalanche struck. It was a freak event in a safe zone. The massive wall of snow buried him. When the rescue team dug him out, the other climbers were injured but alive. Only Kurt Fritz was dead. The mountain had claimed him back. The third victim, Rainer Hölzel. Hölzel was the journalist who filmed the removal of the body. He turned Ötzi into a television spectacle. He broadcast the indignity of the extraction to the world. Months after the documentary aired, he developed a mysterious, aggressive brain tumor. He died in agony, claiming until the end that he felt a dark presence watching him. The fourth victim, Helmut Simon. This is the one that chills the blood. Helmut Simon, the man who found Ötzi, the man who started it all. For years, Simon was bitter. He felt he hadn't been paid enough for his discovery. He fought legal battles for ownership of the mummy. He wanted credit. In 2004, 13 years after the discovery, Simon went for a hike in the Austrian Alps. He was experienced. The weather was fine, but he never returned. Search teams combed the mountains for 8 days. Finally, they found him. He had fallen 300 feet to his death. The circumstances were eerie. He was found lying face down in a stream, his body broken, covered in ice. The position of his body was almost identical to the position of Ötzi when he was found. The mountain gave him up, and the mountain took him back. The fifth victim, Dieter Warnecke. The curse didn't stop with the finder. Dieter Warnecke was the head of the mountain rescue team that found Helmut Simon's body. He was a fit man in his 40s. 1 hour after Helmut Simon's funeral, Warnecke collapsed. A massive heart attack. He died before he hit the floor. He had touched the fate of the Iceman, and it stopped his heart. The sixth victim, Conrad Spindler, the leading archaeologist, the man who identified Ötzi. He was a vocal skeptic. When asked about the curse, he famously laughed and said, "I think it's a load of rubbish. You are making a media sensation. The next thing you'll say is that I'm next." He was next. Not long after that interview, Spindler's health collapsed. A rapidly progressing form of multiple sclerosis and complications took his life. He died knowing he was part of the list. The seventh victim, Tom Loy. Tom Loy was a molecular biologist. He was the man who analyzed the DNA on Ötzi's clothes. He was writing a book about the Iceman. He spent hours scraping the ancient blood from the furs. He was diagnosed with a hereditary blood disease that had been dormant his whole life. It suddenly became active and aggressive. He died just as he was finishing his book. The book was never completed. 7 deaths, all linked to one frozen body. Skeptics will tell you that hundreds of people worked on Ötzi, and only 7 died. They will say that life is fragile, and people die all the time. But consider the nature of these deaths. Accidents, sudden illnesses, falls in the mountains. They are violent, they are abrupt. It is as if something angry woke up in that glacier. Ötzi was a man who died fighting. He died with an arrow in his back and blood on his hands. He was not a king like Qin Shi Huang. He was not a conqueror like Tamerlane. He was a survivor. And maybe, just maybe, his spirit is still fighting, still defending himself against the strangers who poke and prod at his remains. Today, Ötzi lies in a specially built refrigerated cell in a museum in Bolzano, Italy. You can go see him. You can look through a small reinforced glass window and see the leathery skin, the twisted arm. But if you go, don't look for too long. And whatever you do, don't try to open the door. Conclusion. We live in an age where we believe everything belongs to us. We believe that every tomb is a museum exhibit waiting to happen. We believe that every secret should be Googled. We treat the past as a resource to be mined. But the stories of the Terracotta Army, the tomb of Timur, and the Iceman teach us a different lesson. A lesson written in mercury, in war, and in ice. They teach us that the past is not dead. It is only sleeping. There are doors in this world that are locked for a reason. There are warnings carved into stone that are not superstitions, but do not enter signs for the safety of the human soul. Archaeology gives us knowledge, yes, but some knowledge comes at a price we cannot afford to pay. Perhaps it is time we learned to leave some stones unturned. Perhaps it is time to let the dead keep their secrets. Because the next time we stick a shovel into the ground, we might not just find a piece of history. We might find something that is looking right back at us. Sleep well. And remember, if you hear scratching from inside the walls, don't investigate.